death row.
Like we always do about this time.
I'm gonna fight your fucking ass!
You don't got, you're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
There's a little snake in the grass.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
No forget Jesus, people!
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody!
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I'm back.
Who the fuck is that guy? Break out the red panties. We're rich, baby.
I would like to introduce...
Welcome to the MMA for Money Show, episode 55. In this show, we will review UFC Vegas 10, Waterson vs. Hill, maybe a little bit of Bellator in there, and preview UFC Vegas 11, Covington versus Woodley. I am Bob Boss, your favorite garbage man at MMA State of Mind on Twitter, here with Mike Gilman. You can find him at Mikey Gills. Gills with a Z. Do not spell that wrong. That's going to be another random person who we don't know, and we don't know what he's posting out, and we do not condone all of those intense, hateful speech he's doing. So stick with the Z. Also follow the show at MMA for Money Show if you want to get all of the official DraftKings lineups, all of the picks getting sent out, sharing just every which way, sharing the show, all of that. Mikey, how are you doing tonight?
Not bad at all. How about you, sir?
Doing good. Well, but you know what? What we got going tonight? Want to know what we got doing tonight? Saying that real fast. Do you want to know what we got going tonight? It's that new format alert, that new. It's that extra special good stuff that's going to become the standard going forward. Okay. We are going to have Mikey here. As you can see him, he's on my left. I don't know the direction he's at for you, but he is going to be here now the whole show every time. That still doesn't mean real Mike Copenhaver is going away. Nope. Once he can get here, with work not being so crazy, it's a good thing that work's crazy, but when he's here, we'll be the three of us going from the very beginning all the way through. Mikey will be shooting in that DraftKings as it goes on, as well as just normal breakdowns, and that's just us going forward. It's that new, which is it's just the best, and it's become the new normal that's going to make you feel nice, warm, and cozy, that you can just wrap yourself up in a blanket and just lay down and just be. And
he's not here right now, but in my mind, he might slowly start to creep into the window behind you. That's my hope anyway. I can't promise it.
Not going to lie. I don't think I could plan that much better, even though he's about cross country, but that would just be ideal. He comes right in through there, comes over here. He just appears and like you just see him slowly creep forward. And then his head's like right here. And I don't even acknowledge it. It's like a secret. It's a secret between us because this is intimate. We're live right now. You're watching this with us. And he just appears right here. And then you know what? He just pulls a mic out and then we're just a tandem. And then Mikey's there, so we're a trio. And T's in the background. That's a quad. I'm not even sure of the logistics of that one. But you know what? The MMA for Money show is here live right now on Twitch, Periscope, and YouTube. If you're watching us live, you're on one of those three things. If you're not watching us live and you're listening to the podcast, but you want to watch us live, come around next Tuesday at 8 Central, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. That's when we're there for you guys. I don't know what the one true time zone is, the mountain time. We'll get more time zones as things goes on, but you can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overcast Podcast, RSS feed. We are also on YouTube, which is live right now, but after the fact, will be full-length shows, little tidbits of fight breakdowns, reviews, reactions, stuff that you'll like. And subscribe. You'll never miss a show. Like, comment, and share to spread the word. You like the show, others will like the show. Spread the word with that show. With that, we're going to do a quick review of UFC Vegas 10. But the reason we're doing a quick review is because you know what? It went so great. There's a little bit of controversy, but none of it really affected us for the most part. We're going to go through I'm going to give the results. Then we're going to break down a couple of those so we can get into the next Vegas card because it's a doozy. There's some big fights on there and just a lot of fights on there. So even before I throw it to Mikey, I'm literally just going to read through every result and then we can go back through as we want to. In the very first fight, Sabina Mazo, who I know Mikey was super high on, minus 245 against Justine Kiss. She got the third round rear naked choke. Brian Barberena was minus 275, and he got the unanimous decision victory over Anthony Ivy. Frank Camacho was going to fight, but then it got canceled with Brock Weaver. Obviously, as this time goes on, more and more cancellations happen, but Jalen Turner popped in, and he popped Brock Weaver in the face, rocked him pretty bad in the first and second round, and they got that rear naked choke there. Alexander Romanoff, our guy. Yeah, we are laying a stamp before anyone else calls it, because with how high we were on him when he was first supposed to fight, we're claiming him as this show's guy. I've heard someone else say on Twitter that he is our new Cole Conrad, and I was so into Cole Conrad. I am all in on this. If you don't know who Cole Conrad is, look it up. he is the man. And this is our new guy right here, Alex Romanoff. He has like the side etchings of abs, which means he killed Roque Martinez, Roque Martinez, Roque Martinez. I'm probably going to go with Roque just from my past experience. He got the arm triangle choke in the second round, Romanoff, that is. Bobby Green looked fantastic. He was minus 245, got a unanimous decision victory over Alan Patrick, who fights once every 3 years. And it showed. Bobby Green is looking amazing. Now, Roosevelt Roberts was going to fight Matt Favola. Favola got replaced by Kevin Kroom, who was signed and then kicked out of the UFC within 24 hours on the last go-around, came in as a huge underdog and laid out Roosevelt Roberts, kind of destroying most of everyone's parlays, DraftKings, just a little bit of everything. He kind of hurt a lot of people's feelings there. Julia Avila, who everyone was high on, including me, lost to Gerard Eubanks, who I was never been high on. And, well, there that is. Matt Janelle was supposed to fight Tyson Nam. That one got canceled. But we'll get to talk about Tyson Nam again because he's going to be on this fight card if that one doesn't get canceled. Billy Quarantillo got the TKO right cross in round 3 against Kyle Nelson. He was a big favorite, rightfully so. Ed Herman. I'm sorry, I almost laughed saying it. Ed Herman actually got a victory. Plus 215, he's running a little win streak right now against Mike Rodriguez. Submission Kimura in the 3rd round. We'll talk more about that one later. This is just results. Roxanne Matafari as a plus 260 underdog bet for the show. Beat Andrea Lee minus 320. Worthy wasn't so worthy and got knocked out in the 1st round. Yes, I know, Mikey, I probably stole that from you. We'll come up with better ones. Lost to Atman Azatar in the very 1st round, and then Michelle Watterson won a razor-close split decision against Angela Hill, who we all picked on the show, but no one bet, and rightfully so, being that close of a fight. Now, before we go back through just a couple of them, not a lot of them, Mike, can you give the breakdown of how our official DraftKings lineup went, even though it was riddled with canceled fights, new fights, and whatnot? It got changed just about every day, so you did a lot of work on that one, but we still did pretty good. How did we do?
Well, before we get to that, the actual card, I just want to touch on 2 that we switched off of it as the cancellations came. One was Mazo. She hit big for 123 points. We took her out of our lineup to fit somebody else in. The other one was Ed Herman that we had in there. The veteran doing his thing. Just like the Mighty Duck said, take the fall, act hurt, get indignant. Ed Herman with the victory. But anyway, to our lineup, it was a mix of good and bad. So the bad, we'll start with that because I like to end on the positive. The bad is that only 2 of our 6 hit for wins. That would be Alexander Romanoff and Jalen Turner. But they instantly lead into the good on this card because Alexander Romanoff, our stamped show fighter from now on, hit for 147.5 points, which is ridiculous. That's unicorn. That's we've called it. That's red panty night right there. The next one was Jalen Turner, 134. Just out of control, doing his thing. That's exactly what we needed from him. The other one, if you listened to last week's show, you heard me basically go on a soliloquy about how Brian Barberena was going to lose and he'd been out for a while and Anthony Ivy was going to take the fight from him. Not at all what happened, but the good news about that is Anthony Ivy got a lot of takedowns for a loss at his price, which is like cheap, 7,200. He ended up scoring 58.5 points, but he didn't just do that because the best offense is a good defense, and he prevented Brian Barberena from scoring any points. Brian Barberena finished with 64. So Brian Barberena, who cost 9,000, a lot of people had him in their lineups that night, and a lot of them suffered. For almost $2,000 cheaper, we got almost the same exact amount of points out of Ivy. Moving on, Kamal Worthy. That was a rough one. That was on me. I know the show was good, so I could rejoice in that, but he only got half a point. Not good. And then there was Roosevelt Roberts. And honestly, I blame myself for this one because I went out of my way on 2 separate shows to talk about Kevin Kroom, to mock him, if you will, to say very disparaging things.
I think he heard you. This was all getting back at you.
Yeah. He just looked, I swear to God, during the stare down, Buffer went over, or, to do the hand tap thing. He looked right at me and was like, real loud. And
I heard it. I don't know if anyone else did. I know I did.
Roosevelt Roberts scored 1 point. Oh, God.
And honestly, though, at this point, he does deserve it for the tattoos. At some point, he deserved to get too bad it was when we had him, but
yeah,
you deserve it for the tattoos. Kroom will get it for the tattoos in the future, but.
Well, I have to get a tattoo of a smile to erase the frown that I've been walking around with for the last 5 days. But moving right along, Angela Hill, our last one up, 65.5 points lost. Not that it was any kind of robbery. I scored the fight for her, so she should have had 30 more total points. But we finished off with 405.5 points. It's a rough night in the sense that only 2 of our fighters hit, but if you cross 400 points, it wasn't the worst card. I would have liked to have had some of those back, but a lot of crazy upsets last night. The Roosevelt Roberts one was probably the biggest one. We started off with 3 really good scores in a row. I was already counting the trip to Tahiti, and then just it all went to hell after that. But it's a new night. Let's go.
And as me and Mikey were talking about before the show, 400 points, over anything over 400 points, if you're in like a small little pool with your friends or a couple people on Twitter and stuff like that, you're going to end up in the money with that. It's when you get to the bigger ones of guys with their multiple lineups, the like 100, 200, 300 guy pools, that is when you need to hit more than that. And the fact that we hit that, well, Mikey rather hit that. These are his lineups. I'm just kind of blindly tailing. As I've said, I don't have as much DraftKings knowledge. You're still ending up in the money, and at very least making your money back. So
well, we had 2 fighters that combined for basically what 3 fighters on a good night would have done. So that's what really saved us. That and the Ivy, the 5 takedown, 58-point performance from him. Like I said, we started off really good with that. But yeah, you're right. If you're playing somebody who's just putting together a lineup while they're at the red light on the way to the Buffalo Wild Wings, well, maybe that was like 6 months ago, but like you're probably still going to beat them with that kind of score. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been for a 2 for 6. We're going to do better this week. So let's get at it.
And obviously, memory serves, this is the worst of the 3 lineups, but every single one of them have been over 400, which, I mean, you could have 4 winners and not score that much if you get a bunch of Barbarendas in your lineup. So the fact that our guys scored big, and speaking of which, we're going to go right into that because there is a couple ones that we want to hit before we move on to the next event. There's a few guys that we have to cover. We absolutely have to cover. Now, we don't need to bring up Barberena because Barberena did what Barberena does. We didn't think he was going to do that for blowing up so big, somewhere along between fights. So we're just going to move on from that. We don't need to talk about that. Jalen Turner's striking looked phenomenal, but it was against Brock Weaver, so we don't need to talk about that. I was very disparaging of Brock Weaver on the last show, and that was against Frank Camacho. So the fact that he got laid out by Jalen Turner isn't super surprising. But we do want to talk about specifically then the next fighter, because we were so high on him when he was going to go in. It wasn't the initial fight, so we, as a show, we didn't end up betting him because he ended up such a huge favorite. I think at fight time, he was minus 450 versus Roque Martinez. But Alexander Romanoff, our new guy, he went right across on that single, like super low, diligent with it, took it down, advanced positions, and just laid with. Literally the only downside, and for DraftKings, this is good, I guess. They doesn't necessarily have power. You don't get the finish, but he just lays on strikes over and over again, transitions. The takedown, moves to top, moves to side control. Like he was very, very active and putting a lot of damage before he eventually got the finish. And he did get the sub, but I mean, it's not saying much against Roque Martinez. And now, even if they would make the remake what was going to be his first fight, we wouldn't get him at the, I can't remember if it was minus 115 or plus 115 that we had him bet at. But pretty much anybody that doesn't have like show stopping takedown defense, which is only like the top 10 in the division-ish, it's like this guy's going to wreck you and we're going to back him all the way. So I know you were probably one of the biggest, like it was, I think a full week or week and a half before he was originally supposed to fight. You sent me DMs with videos like, this is my new favorite fighter. And then I started watching. I'm like, dude, you were 100% right. This is our guy. And he showed up. So by all means, wax poetic on Alexander Romanoff. Which, sidebar, if you're trying to look up Alexander Romanoff, you have to specifically say MMA because then you're going to get the whole Romanov dynasty in Russia, and it's this whole thing. So go with our Romanoff.
The Romanoff, I'm not saying that a false Google search had my Romanoff dynasty comment last week's show, but it did. Anyway, but no, next week, over my shoulder, right here behind me, I'm going to get that guy, Ross, whatever he is on Twitter, who does the MMA paintings, and you're going to have that still shot of Roque Martinez up in the air looking down like, just like that's going to be behind me next week. I'm going to talk to him and figure it out. No, you couldn't be more excited about that fight. God bless the heart of the stat keeper who had to keep up with when he was doing this, just breaking his whatever like stat machine that he has to keep track of it. No, just couldn't be more excited for Romanoff, man. Just in his highlight reels and all of the fights that you watch before he comes into the UFC, like just he did exactly what he did in his fight tape. And it's so awesome when a fighter that you're that high on comes in. And like when you're texting your friends, like, no, you have to watch this. You have to see this guy. And then he actually performs like that. Then people are texting you back like, oh my God, you know what you're talking about. Which that always feels good. Always feels good. No, I couldn't be happier with him. 147.5 points. Let's go. I can't wait to see who they match him up with next.
I know. I mean, we have to talk about the Ed Herman fight. I know. I guess we have to. So Mike Rodriguez was a huge favorite, minus 255. And I know for sure, I think we all said at some point that we liked Mike Rodriguez. I mean, Ed Herman has that veteran stuff, but he's slow, especially at light heavyweight. And it did show a little bit there. When Mike Rodriguez was throwing, he was landing. He would pin him up against the fence, but then one thing Herman is good at is against the fence, being able to like switch positions and then get you against the fence. And like he did attack and did very well. And then, yes, what everyone's going to talk about is the really messed up call for that groin shot. That 100% went to stomach. I mean, maybe on the way down, the shin hit cup. But, I mean, Ed Herman, veteran savvy, once he went down and the ref just looked at him and went nuts, and they just tapped him. He goes, yeah. And took 5-6 minutes, whatever it was, and then like was able to regain composure. And then even in the throngs of defeat, because even at the point he is on the ground, he is underneath Mike Rodriguez with not that much longer left in the third, and he's working for a Kimura, but wisely Mike Rodriguez is keeping it under him and pressing the body so he can't get that room. And then in that last little bit, he just jerks it back and Rodriguez taps, and Ed Herman is on a win streak in 2020. Not so short of a fuse. I don't have too much more to say about that. I mean, Mikey, do you have anything about the non-groin shots, him doing the veteran savvy of, oh yeah, totally hit me there, taking his sweet time, then eventually getting the submission?
Well, you saw the short fuse. The fuse is out. It's smoldering with a little bit of smoke left, but that was enough. I was really happy about this one in particular, just because by this point in the night, my picks had already kind of started to fall off, but I picked Ed Herman to win this fight as an underdog. And if you remember on the show last week, I said that his veteran savvy and his ground game were going to win this fight. And I'll be damned if that is not exactly what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
Look, I'm not going to say that's exactly how I saw it, but the knee was closer to hitting him in the brain than it was the groin. But then he goes down, he takes his time, comes back. And if that wasn't enough insult for injury, just Ed Herman, just the veteran that he is. Toes right in the fence, pushes off to roll him over. I'm slow clapping on my couch, like, yes, let's go. Basically, like at this point, if you are a tough veteran from back in the day, like just if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Diego Sanchez taking his time, getting the DQ in, Ed Herman doing this. Just I can't wait to see what's next. Get somebody out of retirement. Get Nate Marquardt back out there. Let's see what he can come up with.
Sorry, you gave me just like 13 flashbacks, some good, some bad. So
you want another one of Rich Franklin coming out on one knee to prevent a head kick?
No, it was all about Nate Marquardt. All the different ones of Nate Marquardt. Him on the cover of Muscle and Fitness with the kettlebells. Him getting completely waylaid by guys he would have destroyed like 3 months earlier. And like destroying Damian Maia way back when, but then getting destroyed by other people. Well, there you go. Very on brand and on point for tonight. Eventually, we're going to talk about Tyrone Woodley. Him just like giving the most video game-esque finish of Tyrone Woodley against the fence and Strikeforce.
Oh, yeah.
Post dropping to 170, post extra thickness in the blood and high concentration of TRT. Sorry, you might have to go back for all that if you're a newer fan, but it was a roller coaster, which MMA still is.
It was a great time.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of veteran savvy, this has kind of been both a good thing on the show and a bad thing on the show. We've talked about like all of our favorite veteran fighters are losing, but you know what? There's some that are still sticking with it, and it's because it's in these matchups where people are trying to make a name on them. You got the old veterans versus these more up-and-comers with less experience, and they have just enough all-around skill. Like Ed Herman, I mean, he has a good ground game. I'm not saying he's not, but the speed limiting keeps him from being super high level at it. So like, let's say ground game, you give him an 8 out of 10, but everything else, he's at a 6. So guys can outstrike him, guys can, like all that things, but like he uses it to win. And that goes to our next fight. This was our first bet and win of the night in terms of betting here. We had Roxanne Matafari, the savvy veteran that she is, at plus 260, doing exactly what we just talked about with Ed Herman. She's a 6 across the board. Like maybe she's a 7 in jiu-jitsu. Not ground game because her wrestling is so-so. And her striking is probably more like a 4. Because once you said that part about Dumb and Dumber and I was watching the fight, I could not see it.
right?
I could not see it, or even like similar with Jim Carrey in Me, Myself, and Irene when he's doing the duck. Like
it's funny.
I can't
It's so funny you
unsee
said
it.
that. Somebody tweeted me that. They're like, no, it's actually that. That's hilarious that you just said that.
No, dude, I could not unsee it, but she makes it work for her. She does it just to close that distance, and she would. How I describe it is, for those of you who have been listening to the show for a long time, I promise I won't talk about this too much, but I run marathons periodically. And the best I've ever done was my most recent one. And it's exactly how she fought the fight. You don't go out and go as fast as you can. It's all about the entire fight or the entire race. It's like you have to do it over the course of time. You have to do it every minute or every mile. That's what she did. Every minute, every exchange, she did the best she could do. She didn't win them all, but she won the majority over the course of the fight. And it's why, like, we've called her on a lot of these underdog stuff, because when she's fighting against you can't say that Andrea Lee is too young in the game. She's 31, but someone who doesn't have the experience that Matafari has, she beats you in those middle spots, in those interchanges when you're just throwing one strike and she's throwing two, or like you're throwing a strike at the same time, but she's following it up with a leg kick, or she's getting that transition, or those couple little shots on the ground that add up over time. But I'm just beyond pumped with her veteran savvy, and obviously more than pumped because this was our second 260 or so underdog in like the last 2 or 3 weeks when you count Frankie Edgar on there. So we had a good night, all starting with Roxanne Matafari. So Mikey, thoughts on this fight? Or if you're ready, we can move on to, one that was sad for you, but good for the show after that.
No, the only thing that I'll say about this fight is it made me realize we should have a new segment called the Insult Parlay, where it's a fighter that we'll combine it with Roxanne Matafari, Brian Barberena, and what was his name? I'm sorry, Kevin Kroom. Where if I personally insult you on the show, you're absolutely going to win, and that should be a bet segment with like fake money, but going because all three of those guys just flipped off the screen right at me and just did their thing. So maybe going forward, if I make fun of a fighter, fade them a little bit, just whatever.
Well, I've had that in the past too, and if that was 100% true, at least for me, then Brock Weaver would have just crushed, because I don't think I've ever been that mean about a fighter before. I called him a failed experiment and a bunch of other just not so nice things. But we'll move on because I guess I was right there. Next up, Kama Worthy lost it to Otman Azatar in the first round. This was Mike, the real Mike's bet on this one. His verbatim, what he said is he knew that Azatar came out hard and had finishing ability and would be able to put it on Worthy early. And he thought Worthy's chin was a little bit suspect. And I'm not sure how suspect it is. It's just like he got hit hard. And then the moment he was rocked, the finishing ability, Azatar, was pretty awesome how he just leapt on him and ended up with the finish in the first round. So that was our second bet of the night. So we ended 2-0 for plus 3.75 units if you followed our betting strategy for that night. Moving on to the next one, but super pumped about that. And so we already talked about Angela Hill, Michelle Waterson for the most part. So other than that, you got anything to say about Azatar versus Worthy before moving on to this coming card?
I mean, only if I'm trying to make myself sound a little better. I did say to watch a fight by Azatar that he won. So if you're only half paying attention, you'd be like, man, that guy knows what he's talking about.
Well, I mean, it ebbs and flows because obviously Azatar could have blown up big, and we had picked Worthy against Penna, which he ended up winning, but not the way we definitely said he was going to win, but at least he got it. So we'll see. That sometimes you look good by picking the right guy, even though he doesn't win the way you said he was going to win. So you can still take credit. So even though he lost for you, you were still right in some capacities. Just hold that out and we'll move forward. Now, quickly before we go on to UFC Vegas 11, I was moving to the top of the show, but I didn't have the numbers yet. We always want to give a shout out to Mr. Primetime himself, Jason, MMA for Money. It's what the site is named after. It's what the show is named after. Just want to give you a quick review over what's been going on with him in case you want to buy one of his packages, because he does sell packages for bets. And the reason he sells packages for bets is because on NASCAR, over the last 5 races, over NASCAR, it's 44 plus 44.25 units, which is just insane, and has won the last 5 races, which is insane. NHL so far, he's done plus 20.2 units, which is insane. And then NFL, which obviously has not been going on very long, but he's plus 1.51 units on that. So pretty much guaranteed winner in all of those capacities, especially once they get to the playoffs. He crushes playoffs in general. So That's why he's Mr. Primetime. If you want to hop on there, just wanted to give him a shout out, which is due for what he's doing. I mean, geez. So you can go to the site. There's a page for that if you want to go there and buy one of those packages. Now for UFC Vegas 11, Covington versus Woodley, yes, I agree. They need to come up with something else to call these other than UFC Vegas. But it's better than UFC on ESPN plus 35, which I think this one would have been, or something along those lines. But first off, I'm not even going to break down this fight at all. I'm really not. I'm just going to say what it is. There's not even odds on it. Miguel was supposed to fight, but he's out. It's Miguel Beza versus Jeremiah Wells. I don't even know if there's DraftKings salaries on this. So, Mikey, I will throw. There isn't?
No, there isn't.
Okay, we're just going to straight pass this fight completely because I'm not going to just. We are honest on the show. I know nothing about these fighters, so even if I would just wager a guess on this, I would just be blowing smoke up your dress, and it's not worth it. So we're going to go to some fighters that we actually know, because then it's worth it. Next up, Tyson Nam, who we had talked about, is fighting. He is minus 165 versus Jerome Rivera plus 145. Mikey, in terms of like DraftKings, just like overall picks, how you like Nam in this matchup? We didn't like him necessarily as much in the last one versus Schnell, but how do you like him against Rivera?
I mean, I like him a lot in this fight. Going against a guy like Rivera, who I'd forgotten who Rivera was. You guys would probably know him from a viral clip that went around 2 years ago of the MMA fighter that broke his arm going against the cage and ran around and it was just flopping all over the place. That was Jerome Rivera.
It was? Oh, man.
You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. I didn't remember that.
Yeah. So that was Rivera. I would pick Nam in this fight. Rivera, watching this fight, like on the Dana White Contender Series, he doesn't really his movement's kind of stiff on the feet. He is a little bit bigger, but he doesn't put his striking together very well. His takedowns aren't that good. And I just think at some point, Nam, who is much better than his record suggests, 19-11, a lot of those losses came earlier in his career. And then when he first entered the UFC, he went against Sergio Pettis and Kai Kara France. Neither of those guys are scrubs. I would take Nam in this fight. He's 8,600 on DraftKings with a really good chance at a finish here. He's like a patient fighter. You know, he waits to land. Going against a submission guy in Rivera. Out of his 10 wins, 7 of them were subs. But talking about Nam, he's never been subbed in his whole career, and he's never even been taken down in the UFC. So for me, Nam 8,600. I don't really trust Rivera for his price at 7,600. So yeah, that's Nam or nothing.
In general, I like Tyson Nam as a fighter. I do think he's kind of not sized out, but kind of aged out of the division. He's not as fast as he once was. He's all around a good fighter. But one thing he still has is just that fight-ending, just opponent melting power that once it landed. That was our biggest issue when we were doing the breakdown between Nam versus Schnell. Is Schnell was better everywhere. He's faster. He's younger. He has so many tools, but his chin isn't the strongest, and Nam can just straight liquidate people. And honestly, I think that's when it's going to happen here. I think at some point he is going to land big and land very big on Rivera here. And I like him. I don't like him enough for a bet, mind you, because it's still Tyson Nam and he has all of the idiosyncrasies that he has. So my pick here is Nam. Nothing in terms of a bet. Next up, Derek.
Real quick, one more thing about Nam before you're talking about not wanting to bet on. Just one little other thing is he lives in Hawaii, and everything in Hawaii is still pretty much shut down. We were going to talk about that on the 2 shows ago, so he hasn't really been able to get a full training camp in. But just wanted to throw that last thing out there. No, yeah,
totally agree with that. I mean, other than because it's one of the places where not only is there not training happening or not allowed to be happening, there's still sneaking in there a little bit. Is like the fine's pretty hefty for having, to the point that even Max Holloway is saying that he's not training with, even though he more than likely is. Max, not Nam. But someone like Nam can't afford a ticket for training with people. That's probably more than like his show money. So we'll move on. Derek Minner actually got another fight in the UFC. I know, right? He's plus 235 underdog versus TJ Laramie, minus 270. TJ Laramie is a long time mainstay in Canadian MMA. Him and his brother have been on the come up. I've been hearing about this guy for years and actually really excited about this. There's a reason he's minus 270. I do think it's like he's literally better everywhere. And I'm trying my best as someone on a podcast to not say literally too much, but literally. Sorry, but before I just go down a rabbit hole with that, Mikey, TJ Laramie versus. Sorry, I always want to mispronounce Derek Minner's name because there's letters in there that shouldn't be in there. Like, I want to say Dvorak Minner so bad, but I'm just holding that off. So, but save me, Mike. Give me a breakdown.
Start off with Dvorak Minner, 24-11, 5'7", 71-inch reach. Out of his 24 wins, 21 submissions. So, like, you look at that and you're like, oh man, this guy's like definitely a great submission artist. Until you get to his losses, he's got 8 submission losses out of those 11. And on the first show that I ever did on this show with Real Mike, we had a long talk about how we don't really trust fighters like that. Minner's no different. He's a submission guy who gets subbed a lot. I don't ever trust that. And he also, not to bring up the devil's name here, he does have a submission loss to Kevin Kroom. Just throwing that out there. Yeah. I didn't want to. Don't say his name again. If you say it 3 times, he's like Candyman. He'll just show up behind your window with Real Mike. Yeah. But
that picture from the matchups is just going to appear behind you with the.
Yeah. But no, I mean, he's facing TJ Laramie. I mean, what can you say about him? Really solid wrestler. I think if I remember correctly, he was the number 1 ranked guy in Canada at his weight class. Yeah. 66-inch reach, 7 KOs, 2 subs. On his Dana White Contender Series fight, he's the guy who got on top of the other one. But since we're talking about broken bones and fights on the show, got on top of him, just rained down the punches on his ribs, and a guy to quit on the stool. He's $9,200 on here, but I really think for this fight against this opponent, he's worth it. Out of all of those high-end guys that are really set to pay off, for $9,200 to be able to save that extra 100 or 200 for the guys that are above him, I think he's actually the safest play on the card. Plus, I didn't learn my lesson with Fabinski Moises about submission fighters underneath, fighting wrestlers on top. I'm definitely going to roll with him. He's a core player for us at 9,200. I think he can either get the finish or rack up the points. And Minner, 7,000, complete stay away from me. I have no faith in him to do anything.
Next up, Andre Ewell, -210 versus Erwin Rivera, +175. Going to be no surprise. I mean, obviously he's a heavy favorite, but I really like Ewell here. He has a ridiculous reach advantage in this fight, about 7 inches, and he fights long. His Muay Thai looked really nice in the last going. I mean, the last fight was a little bit closer than comfort for me, but I still think he's going to be able to beat Rivera to the punch. I mean, I know Rivera is a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, but I think he's going to stand there and bang. And looping punches versus straight jabs and kicks to the stomach, those straight power kicks to the stomach. I like Ewell overall here. The only downside is I do think it'll be 2 decision. So, I mean, Rivera has a chance to land something big as Ewell was starting to get rocked at the tail end of his last fight where accumulated damage. But I think he should be able to hold it on for long enough here and get the decision here. Again, sorry to go with a steep favorite, but I mean, they can't all be Roxanne Matafari.
Starting off with Irwin Rivera, 10-5, 5 KOs. He's 4-1 in his last 5 at 3 finishes, won his last fight. I think his style is actually tailor-made for Ewell. Ewell's 16-6 with 7 knockouts, a big reach advantage, 7 inches of reach and 2 inches of height. He's coming off a win in February, 3-2 in the UFC, all by decision. Really busy guy on the feet, throws real heavy in exchanges. He mixes up his strikes a lot. There's a lot of kicks in there.
And a giant head. Like a giant head for his body. Like
so sort of like Piston Honda from Punch Out. You know, it's going to take a lot to get him out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think I'm with you. I think Ewell, I think it's size and reach advantage. Just does what he does on the feet. He can do what he does wants to do on the ground, I think, as well. Rivera could be a good dog play because if they end up in a firefight, it's MMA. But for right now, Ewell at 8,800, you could do worse. I personally like Nam a little bit more at that price, but Erwin Rivera at 7,400. We'll talk about it at the end when we talk about how we're going to put some different dogs in there. He could be one of those guys just because you never know. He could connect. He's not on our play, but you might like him.
Next up, we have Randy Costas, a +120 underdog versus Journey Newson, -140. Ran Costas at about just under a year layoff. There's only 6 fights to his name. Joe Lozon is his main coach. He did look great in his last time out versus Boston Salmon, although I didn't necessarily hold Boston Salmon in too high regard. He hasn't really fought It's going to be odd considering he's been in the UFC for a few fights now, but he has not fought UFC caliber fighters at all. He does not have the experience to go too much further, in my opinion. He should not have gone to the UFC. I know that's really rough saying that, but some of these guys, even though they're winning and they're on the Dana White's Contender Series and all that stuff, they need a little bit more seasoning. They need to get those experiences of fighters that they never faced before, the different stylistic matchups, and I just don't think he has that yet. On the other side, Journey Newson, he's a little bit older, 31. Honestly, I haven't been too high on either of these guys. No contest last time out, but he was coming off a pretty severe layoff before that. Oh man, I realize there's a long pause and a lot of dead air here, but like I don't really like either guy just in general as fighters, and now they're fighting each other. So do not follow this advice at all, what I'm about to say. But this seems like an incredibly even fight to me, so I just lean the dog inherently, just because if it's a 50-50 fight, you go with the dog over time. That pays out. No bet. If you bet this and get angry with me if it loses, you have no claim. So, Mikey can break down the DraftKings on this and I guess give this a little bit more intrigue than I was able to give it.
Oh, you want the intrigue? We'll start off with the obvious. You just mentioned it. He's a Lozon MMA guy, just like Mike Rodriguez. You're going to tell me that camp's not motivated for a win right now? Randy Costa? He's going to come out that he wants this win back. As long as there's no tough veterans around, he should be all right. But, Randy Costa, 5-1, 5 knockouts. He's big size and reach advantage. He's 5'9", 73-inch reach. Newsom, 5'5", 65-inch reach. I've watched Randy Costa fight. I mean, it's like you said, he hasn't really fought anybody great, but he's going out there and doing what he should do against guys that aren't great. Journey Newson, on the other hand, 9-2. Look at both of the records of the guys they've fought. They've both fought a ton of fluff. So 9-2 versus a 5-1 record. I mean, to me, you can just kind of throw that out the window. Neither of these guys are facing world beaters. I like Randy Costa in this fight. I just think I've watched a lot of his fights. He goes out there, he throws with real bad intentions, a lot of fire. He's facing Journey Newson, a guy who grew up, he's a heavy-handed guy himself, grew up, his dad was a boxer. He's probably been boxing from a young age. I think they're going to go out there and trade on their feet. And right now, I'm just going to ride the guy who's knocking out everybody, and that's Randy Costa. And going on with the DraftKings, he's $7,800 on DraftKings. I think you could do a lot worse on this card for guys that price. Newsom, on the other hand, $8,400. I like other guys a lot better than him on DraftKings for that price. Guys, speaking of price, guys like Nico Price, like it was $8,500 on this card. We'll get to him later. For Newsom, I don't like him. He's got Johnny Walker within his price range, Johnny Walker and Nico Price. I would just stay away from Newsom on this card altogether. I think there's a lot of value on this card for Randy Costa, who is going to go out there and look for a first round finish.
Next up. Sorry, I'm trying to build up the excitement, but there's more exciting fights later. I promise. No offense to upcoming. Sarah Alpar is plus 180 versus Jessica Rose Clarke minus 220. Alpar is a Dana White's veteran. At this point, I'm just called a Dana White's veteran. It's faster. The name for the entire thing is too long, so I'm just truncating the name to Dana White's fighters because they technically are his fighters until they get signed by the UFC, and even then, they probably still are. Jessica Rose Clarke was in the wave of Australian fighters who the UFC, this is the earlier versions of Australia fighters when they thought, oh, this is the new crop. We're going to get all these guys with James Tahuna and Beck Rawlings and all these killers. But then they weren't. And honestly, Jessica Rose Clarke, in terms of all-around talent, has more than like someone like Beck Rawlings, who has since been bounced. She does have some halfway decent victories to her name. She's tenacious. Like she beat Paige Van Zandt. You could say whatever you want about beating Paige Van Zandt. I mean, she will come at you for the entire fight. Just Rose Clarke has got a decent gas tank on her. And in terms of like we've talked about before, like a 5 or 6 across the board that can do a little bit of everything, other than, decrease power a little bit. She'll go for it and head and arm throws galore and all that jazz. She's a huge favorite here, obviously. I think for some reason the UFC likes her, and they're just doing what we've talked about with some of these Dana White's fighters is they get a contract because apparently every night people need to get a contract. If you're watching it right now, I bet a guy just got a contract Does not mean they're going to last in the UFC for very long. So you just throw them against a name. It's either a win for the name or you instantly make a name by throwing them against a name. This is what it is. It's, to me, lazy matchmaking. But here's what we have for this one. So I'm picking Jessica Rose Clarke. I would guarantee this is a very low-scoring fight on DraftKings. I don't even know a lot about DraftKings. So I'll throw it to Mikey, who's the more expert on that fight. Well, in that premise, Mike, Alpar versus Clarke.
I'll start off with Alpar because I'm sure a lot of people don't really even know too much about her. She's 9-4-1, 2 knockouts, 2 subs, 5'4" with a 63-inch reach. Kind of like physically, looks like someone let the air out of Bethe Correia, but it's not important.
I'm sorry, that was spot on. If anyone like looks at even her picture on any of the MMA anything, that's like probably the most spot on description I've heard of her.
I just insulted her, so now she's guaranteed to win. But so
depends how much you feel about Bethe Correia. I mean, that might just be like, what? Because she just got booted from the UFC, or no, she has one more fight and she's retiring. I'm sorry, she has one more fight and she's retiring. This could be your new queen.
That could be. I think I just told myself a little bit about how I feel. About it.
She's the number 1 women's fighter out of who they have her for, Oklahoma. So there's that.
There we go. You're selling me right now. So
number 1 bantamweight women's fighter out of Oklahoma.
Now, back to Alpar. She's won 3 straight, but one thing I noticed about her record, she's really inactive. She hasn't fought in over a year. It was that rear naked choke she had on Dana White's Contender Series. But if you look at her fight, it's oddly stacked. In the first 5 years of her career, she had 9 fights. But then in the last 5 years, she's only had 4 fights. Since 2015, she's only fought once a year. So I'm not even sure, like, is she a full-time fighter? Is she just taking matchups that she knows she can win? I have no idea, honestly. But I do know a little bit more about Jessica Rose Clarke. She's got, at the very least, decent stand-ups. You know, she's coming off 2 straight losses. She's going to be hungry to get this win. So, you know, I'm taking Clarke here. The solid stand-up, a size and reach advantage. I think she can play it smart and get back on track. You know, she could be a good play on DraftKings, but like you said, maybe not the highest scoring decision you're going to see. She's $8,900. In comparison to other fighters in that price range, I like, you know, Ewell and Holland. They're both kind of around that range. I like both of those guys better than Clarke right here. But Alpar, complete stay away for me at 7,300. I don't know enough about her. I don't have enough confidence to play her even for 7,300. So Jessica Rose Clarke, 8,900. Let's go.
Next up, we have Jordan Espinoza. He's -115 against David Dvorak, -105. In the past, I know at least for the show, we've been high on Jordan Espinoza, and he's actually won us money in the past. But the more that I look at this matchup, I'm liking David Dvorak more and more. It was the Jordan when he fought Mark De La Rosa, which obviously in that scenario, we've all seen how Mark De La Rosa has fought, and he has a decent. It's weird. He has both a decent and not so decent record, but he's beat solid guys. Like he beat Eric Shelton, who I for a long time had a very high esteem here at flyweight. But David Dvorak, he's longer. I don't know. I just see Dvorak putting him out, putting Espinoza out. That is some form of finish, likely. Starting with punches, maybe finishing with submissions. He has tendency to do that. He'll lock in a rear naked choke if he gets you down. And I went, full disclosure, I also went down a David Dvorak Instagram rabbit hole, which was very entertaining. It's just like, it's too many like professional photos taken of him interspersed between just like his life, to the point that I'm just like both uncomfortable and oddly impressed that you're given that much of a push towards your IG game. So kudos to you, David Dvorak.
He's the Luka Magnotta of the UFC.
No, but I do think he has the more finishing capability, and I think that Jordan Espinoza is not what I once thought he was going to be. I do not think that he's going to be able to handle the type of output, the type of pressure, and the type of just all out around damage that the Undertaker, as his nickname goes for David Dvorak, is going to put on him. So pick there, no bet. I know it's a close fight. If he gets start getting into like plus money here, right now it's minus 115, minus 105, as I've said. If Dvorak gets to like that plus 120 range, that's something that I'll probably play. And if I do, as always, I'll post it on Twitter. It won't be an official bet for the show, but it might be one on my personal account. Mikey, Jordan Espinoza versus David Dvorak.
Well, I think you said it all when you said that his nickname was The Undertaker. I mean, I can't go 5 minutes without making a wrestling reference, so I didn't even need to see the fight tape. I was already going to bet on the guy. But, luckily I did see some fight tape, so, there's that too. David Dvorak, 18-3, 8 knockouts, 7 submissions. This guy's a finisher. He's going out there every time to try to put you away. 5'5", 68-inch reach. He's won 14 straight fights. 13 of those were finishes. His only non-finish was his last fight, his unanimous decision victory when he first got into the UFC. He's a guy who mixes up his strikes well. Very diverse arsenal, power in both hands, likes to throw a lot of those lower calf kicks. I personally love those, and I get a little giddy anytime I see somebody start to throw them. Certain European fighters, you aren't really sure what their level of competition that you're fighting is. So if you're looking for something to be a little wary of, that might be it. But he looks like the truth from everything that I've seen from him. I mean, this is a guy, like, you don't need to be fighting absolute world beaters to show me that you have really good, solid technique. On the other side, Jordan Espinoza, 15-7, 2 knockouts, 7 subs, coming off that decision, the win against Mark De La Rosa, like you just said. He lost 2 straight before that. He's 2-2 in the UFC. And in this fight, I think he's just going to have to rely on his wrestling to maybe try to grind out a decision. And again, from watching fights, you can go ahead and watch Dvorak's last fight. He's a guy, he can get up. He can get up, and once he gets up, he's going to make you pay for even trying to take him down. Those Europeans, man, you insult them even a little bit, they take it real seriously. That's what you're going to see with this guy. I'm picking David Dvorak, finishing machine. On the feet, he looks solid. I think he can shut down Espinosa's wrestling, and 14 wins in a row. At this point, he's not Anderson Silva, but just like Anderson Silva was, you have to lose before I'm going to start betting against you when you're on that kind of run. Dvorak's 8,200 on DraftKings. We are going to lock him into our lineup. I believe in him. Jordan Espinoza, 8,000. Don't quite believe in him as much, but, it does have maybe a little more experience, at least in the UFC. Maybe if you want to feel good about a wrestler in the smaller cage, that's something for you. But for me, staying away from Espinoza, David Dvorak, locking him in, 8,200. Let's go.
Next up, occasionally on this show, we've brought up times that we think that the UFC is doing a setup fight. They don't do gimme fights, but if you look close, sometimes it seems like they do gimme fights. And honestly, that's how I see the next one. Mayra, always going to pronounce that wrong because I keep wanting to say a completely different name. Either way, Bueno Silva, minus 240 versus Mauro Romero Barella, plus 200. She's on a 3-fight losing streak. I think it's let me double check because I can't remember if it's a 3-fight losing streak or a 3-fight finish losing streak.
I have
no one of them went to decision. Montana De La Rosa went to decision. Yeah, she lost decision to Montana De La Rosa. That's an actual thing that happened. Silva is a past Dana White's fighter. She did lose to Morose more recently, but I do think that they are high on her and they see something in her, and I just see this as a complete setup fight. Just get another win on her, have her get a nice little bounce back fight with a name with a little bit of cachet, not a ton, but if you've been watching WMA within the UFC, you at least know who Mauro Romero Barella is. Obviously, she's not a big budget star or anything like that, but I think they're starting to build Silva, and I think this is one of those spots for that. I actually think Silva is going to get a finish here against Mauro Barello Romero, like all the names, just all the names. Sorry. I do think she's going to get choked by Silva. Keep wanting to try to pronounce her first name again. It's not going too well. And I also do not know what Shitara means. I should probably know more Brazilian by this point, but that nickname. So I guess I'll probably look that up when I send it to you, because if it's fierce, I got to back that. So Mikey, Silva versus Romero or Barella.
Just starting off, just trying to read these notes. Mayra Buena Silva, Mauro Romero Barella. Just my brain fries whenever I look down at my notes, just like, which one am I looking at? But no, I agree with everything you just said. This is a setup fight. Silva's looking like she's going to win pretty cleanly here. She's going off for 9,000 on DraftKings. Look, if you could fit her into your lineup, I would definitely do it. I had a tough decision to make with ours. I like a couple other fighters that I think can just score a little bit higher in that, but Silva 6-1, 1 knockout, 4 subs. She is going out there to finish a fight. 5'6", 65-inch reach. Barella, she's lost 3 straight, 2 by stoppage. I just don't see any path to victory for her in this fight. So lock in Silva if you can. I think she's going to be a great play. 9,000. She's pricey, but I think she's going to earn it for you.
If you are watching live and you notice me snicker, I'm going to explain. And if you didn't watch live, I just audibly told you that I snickered, so I'll explain. So I'm actually very embarrassed that I didn't realize this, but it's amazing. Is that because I assumed it was Brazilian because I'm an ignorant American. But Chitara is actually from the character from Thundercats. So she just got like extra bonus points for me there, going full geek on me. I very much appreciate that. So like I'm about to too extreme of a betting favorite there. I was almost going to bet her. Like, if that was close, that's something I bet you for. Just like not for the show, but just for my own personal thing, so I could literally cheer for a character from Thundercats. I'd be all for that. So I'm going to move on before I talk about Thundercats Go and like start cheering and doing all the stuff from there. We'll move on.
Right.
Kevin Holland minus 250 is fighting Darren Stewart plus 210. Darren Stewart has played a little bit of spoiler in the past with guys like Darren Wynn, who I personally was fairly high on. I thought he was going to be mini DC. I guess not so mini DC, if you get me. Should be like 170-pound DC, but was fighting at like 205 DC and was like 5'2". Sorry, I'm not trying to disparage Darren Wynn here. I was actually trying to build up Darren Stewart, partly because he also spells the first name right. I actually do like him a little bit as an underdog here, not enough to bet it whatsoever. I do like Kevin Holland. I thought he would be much higher at this point. He's been in the UFC long enough, but I don't think all of his athleticism and talent has quite translated. And I think in the smaller cage, Darren Stewart has a chance to push him up against the cage and make it boring. And if he does that and limits the striking, then you're going to get a close fight that can go split decision either way. And obviously this is a big underdog here, so that'd be a way to lean it. If a finish is going to happen here, it's going to be on the Holland side, putting out Stewart. So in terms of if you're looking for like a bigger budget type thing for something like DraftKings, you might want to lean more towards Holland. But in terms of like an all-out pick for the fight, just a quick pick, I'll go with Darren Stewart. I think he's going to make it ugly and win a sleazy 29-28 decision. Mikey, Holland versus Stewart.
I'm on the other side of this one. I think Kevin Holland, I think he's in a roll here. 18-5, 9 knockouts, 5 subs. He's on a 2-fight win streak, 3-2 in his last 5, a huge height and reach advantage. I just think a guy like him that comes out, the way he fights, like really creative with his strikes. He throws a lot of like, I don't know, weird like taekwondo sidekick stuff, just kind of craziness. I just think he's the better fighter out of the two. You know, Darren Stewart, 12-5. He's another guy, 7 knockouts, 1 sub. He's going to go out there, try to finish you the same exact way. But I just think that's going to end up playing into Kevin Holland's hands in this one. And not to mention, if we're talking about DraftKings specifically, Kevin Holland's price went off at 9,100. He averages, just in his wins, like if you take his losses away, but just I'm focusing on the way he wins here, he averages 100 points per win on DraftKings. That's a solid night out if you can get it. And especially, I think I'm picking him to win the fight. I think if he goes up against Darren Stewart, puts on a show like I think he can, for $9,100, he can pay off for you pretty well on that one. It's really just a matter of choice from the price range that he's at. If you ask me personally, I like TJ Laramie just a little bit better right there. Darren Stewart, it's like you said, he could make it ugly. He could steal one away. $7,100 that could be worth it. I mean, there are worse ways to go as far as underdogs go for sure. But for me, it's Kevin Holland, $9,100. I like him.
Next up this is going to be a very, I guess not unique, because if you've heard us break down Randall Marcos fight in the past, and if you heard us break down a Dern fight in the past, it's kind of the amalgamation of those two things. Mackenzie Dern is a minus 165 favorite, rightfully so, versus Randall Marcos plus 145. Obviously, Mackenzie Dern is probably the highest level jiu-jitsu practitioner in WMMA within the UFC at this point in time. And she finds us a way to finish, and you would hope her striking is coming along more than it is, but it really hasn't. She oddly has power, though, which has always been very confusing to me because she doesn't seem to have much technique whatsoever. But once it gets on the ground, she is vicious. Randall Marcos has been in the UFC for quite a long time. She's plus 145 here. Obviously, Dern is better on the ground. technique striking, I still got to give it to Marcos. Doesn't have the power, but can throw in combination, but usually is throwing in combination to get into the clinch. So that might not be smart. But there's two things you need to know. One on the Dern side, one on the Marcos side. On the Dern side, she's getting to the point where she's like standing and banging rather than bringing it to the ground for submission, which is not smart. And she's almost lost fights in the past because of it. And like if she gets, it's either going to be like, if you have money on her, you're going to be sweating the whole time. If she gets a sub, it's going to be amazing. And if she doesn't, it's going to be close. But on the other side, the other very key factor is you can't, it defies logic that you can't beat the Ronda Marcos streak. And if you've never heard of the Ronda Marcos streak, what it is she has alternated wins and losses in the last 13 UFC fights. And she lost her last fight. So everything MMA says that Marcos is going to win her next fight. Like it defies opponents. It defies like anything. She has a first round submission win over Angela Hill. Angela Hill, who just almost beat Michelle Waterson in the last fight. Yes, she has a loss to Claudia Gadelha. She has a win over Carla Esparza. Like this is the weird back and forth that she does that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But once she was in the UFC, we're not counting tough or anything like that. When she was in the UFC, it went win-loss. It went loss-win, just on and on and on and on, starting all the way back in 2014. And here we are in 2020. I mean, I'm not counting the draw to Marina Rodriguez because obviously it's a draw, so that wasn't a win or a loss. And then if you go to the next fight after that, the alternation of fights still held. So you almost want to go Marcos here. I know that makes no sense. I know stylistically Dern should win, but it's happened for 13 fights. I can't rightfully pick Dern strictly based off that record of 13 in a row, alternating regardless of who she's fighting, especially if Dern decides that, you know what, I'm going to stand and bang this fight. I don't need to submit. It's fine. It's fine. I'm only like a year and a half since having a baby. I haven't really been training, but you know what? We're going to punch. It's a thing that I can kind of do is at the same time I can make fake accents. I can throw punches. And neither of those things are true. And so I'm going to pick Marcos. No bet, because I would not lay a bet on something as flimsy as she alternates between wins and losses for the last 13 fights. But I'm going to pick Marcos because, by God, the MMA gods are there. I know that made no sense or entertained you. Mikey, Dern, Marcos, the streak.
Yeah, all right. So real quick, the random Marcos thing, it's funny that you mentioned it. Like literally like the first two things that I think of is like she lost her last fight in March, hasn't won 2 consecutive since 2014. Like, oh man, like what do we do here? What do we do? But in this case, I mean, when I look at just the skills of these two, Randa Marcos, a 10-8 fighter, half of her wins are submissions. She likes to clinch people and get them to the ground. And with a purple belt, that is just not a game that you want to play with against someone like Mackenzie Dern. And not just that, is Randa Marcos, we talked about Tyson Nam earlier. Marcos hasn't been able to get in a real training camp. She lives in Canada and she trains in Michigan, and she doesn't have a work visa to get in the country. So she has not been able to even get a real camp in. I have no idea what she's been doing up there. No one does. Training at a local gym. I don't know. Who knows what kind of training partner she's getting. For her to win this fight, I mean, she kind of has to keep this fight standing. Mm-hmm. And man, Randa Marcos, she might be a better striker. I don't know.
In terms of volume, in terms of power and stuff like that, probably not.
I'm certainly not going to hang my hat on that when I'm talking about a purple belt versus like a black belt, and then there's black belts and black belts, especially like in the women's division. Mm-hmm. Mackenzie Dern is so much farther ahead than all these other girls are on the ground. And I have to factor that in. She's 8-1, 5 submissions. Her last fight was back in May. She started off the Hannah Cyphers COVID-19 tour of pain, that first round knee bar. Actually, a couple episodes back, we were talking about Hannah Cyphers. I mistakenly said that Hannah Cyphers took Dern down. That's not exactly what happened. It was actually slightly dumber than that. She was taken down, got out of it, and then Cyphers had her down on the ground, could have just stepped back up, instead stuck her leg in and was immediately knee barred. Anyway, I just want to get that out of the way. So so I'm making up for slightly bad information a few weeks back. But no, Mackenzie Dern, her striking, very aggressive, not super technical, but she has been working lately with Jason Perillo. And I personally think that guy's a magician. Like, you think about Jason Perillo, like I think Bisping started working with him, and all of a sudden Luke Rockhold is a full-time model. I don't know, things like that. But for me, it's Mackenzie Dern. I think on the feet, she has more power to knock her out. If it goes to the ground, I mean, the fight's going to be over in less time than it took me to finish this sentence. For $8,700, Mackenzie Dern gets an awful lot of points for that. I mean, you're talking about she's going to go out there. She finishes almost all of her fights. 8,700, let's go. I'm rolling Mackenzie Dern out there. Marco, 7,500, a bit of a stay away. All the hate that Mackenzie Dern gets for her missing weight, none of that's going to show up on fight night. She's good for 100. Let's play her.
And don't be wrong, if she gets that sub, she's going to clear that easy. So that's just saying it that way. Obviously, I know I'm going for Marcos with the streak, just because it's weird enough and MMA enough that it can happen, but that's by no means a technical breakdown. So next up, Johnny Walker, the one-time early on favorite of new light heavyweights, is a minus 25 favorite versus Ryan Spann, who's plus 105. And I know you're thinking exactly what I think every time Ryan Spann fights. If you are anywhere in the realm of 28 to 40, and you just think of the Dane Cook comedy special about when you see a guy with Superman on his chest, what you want to do to him. And I know exactly how you're feeling. I really, really do, but that does not get past how I feel about this fight. Now, quickly before anything, because he is not here, but was able to give his pick, Mike, the real Mike. Again, this is no disparity towards Mikey. We're just trying to differentiate between the two.
I'm fine being fake Mike. I've accepted fake Mike. I'm actually getting it tattooed. So.
Well, I either need to get comfortable calling you Mikey, which might take a bit, but I feel like I could flow easier into Mikey Gills just because it does flow. But I'm not sure I want to say that every single time I ask you a question. So I'm trying to find my happy medium. So
I asked my fiance to call me Mikey Gills. She still hasn't done it. It'll be nice if one person did. So
I'll start doing that. I'll put a little reminder. We need to. Well, that's your name in the chat is that, so that might help. Okay, we'll go there. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, the real Mike is picked for his bet. Is picking Ryan Spann here. I had shed the quick. If you saw me doing some typing, I was editing the odds. As of right now, Ryan Spann is plus 105 against Johnny Walker's minus 120. Actually, that one might have changed too. Realize I changed one, not the other. Minus 125. So I'll edit that one post show for saving purposes. But he has Ryan Spann. He thinks Johnny. I'll tell you what, I will pull up the exact notes I got from him so you know it's coming from him. So I wanted to make sure that we got his. He said he thinks Walker has a suspect chin, which I agree with, and wrestling. And he thinks Spann is just too powerful and can end his night. That was just his quick bullet point text breakdown. And I actually do agree with that on just about everything. Obviously, we've all been high on Spann, and a little bit of air's got taken out the tires with how close his last fight was. That one was a little rough to watch. He didn't lose, but he could have. He was dominating early, and then it started to fade away, but it was against a veteran, and I'm not sure I'm willing to call Walker a veteran. And Walker has lost to guys that are equivalent levels of flashy as Spann, but less powerful. Like losing the decision to Nikita Krylov was kind of rough to watch, and I love Krylov. I love the weird fight that is Nikita Krylov. But if you're losing to someone like Nikita Krylov, I think you can lose someone like Ryan Spann, and I actually think Ryan Spann can put some serious leather, if you want to say, on a Walker's face. Walker is going to be all go in the first round, and if he doesn't get it within those first few blitzes that he does, he's likely done, in my opinion. And I think by the time this fight ends, I think it's going to be Johnny Walker red. Bad point, but I'm going to take it. Yeah. So the bet for the show for the real Mike is Ryan Spann 1 unit at plus 105. So that's to win 1.05 units. Mikey Gills, we're working on it. DraftKings, Johnny Walker, Superman. Where you at?
All right. So I'm again on the other side of this one. I don't like being against everything, but we don't.
DraftKings is different. We've talked about that before. DraftKings is different. You could be on the other side, and even if it's a losing affair, losing a fair. You still get you can get more points.
Well, not just that, is a peek behind the curtain for the people listening. We don't get together before the show and go over our picks. These are all separate. We're giving you what we honestly feel. And for me, I honestly feel this is a Johnny Walker bounce back moment. 17-5, 14 knockouts, 2 subs. This is a dude who finishes fights. He's aggressive. He goes out there and gets it. He's a monster. 6'6", 82-inch reach. He has lost 2 straight. But I understand that Corey Anderson, beast in 25-8. He's not the greatest fighter who's ever lived, but he's not a pushover either. He's good. No. And if you watch that fight, he caught Walker right on the temple. He didn't knock him dead. There wasn't anything like that. He stunned him, and you could tell he was just hurt. And then he hit him with, however many more shots. He never really went out. And then you could tell he was gone though, because Anderson was just yelling at him and he was staring at him like he didn't even know what planet he was on. And then, his next fight after that, Krylov, he took him down over and over and laid on him. I'm not sure that's what Span's going to do to him. But in terms of Johnny Walker, he's had 6 months to recover from both of those losses. He's moved his camp to SBG. Maybe Kavanaugh can teach him something. We were talking about Pereira a few weeks ago. Like, could he just reel it in just enough to focus a little more technique? Maybe that's what can happen with Johnny Walker. He's in a good camp for strikers. So I don't know. He's only 28 years old. He's not washed. I mean, all that hype that was behind him, for me, that doesn't get erased with 2 losses, especially when one of them is kind of getting grinded out like that. It's just, these are things that you learn along the way. Everyone's going to lose. On the other side, you got Ryan Spann, the greatest tattoo ever. You've never seen me shirtless. You may have hurt my feelings when you talked about it. We don't know. But no, but another big guy, 6'5", 81-inch reach, 18-5, 4 KO, 11 subs, former LFA champ. It's on an 8-fight win streak. I know earlier I talked about when you get on a streak like that, it's hard for me to cheer against you, but I just think in this fight, stylistically, Johnny Walker, he's got all the physical gifts you could ever ask for. If he can just pull it together just a little bit. And I just can't get that Sam Alvey fight out of my head.
Yeah. I will fully say that was a rough one. It absolutely was. The entirety of the fight was a rough one. At the beginning, you were like, yeah.
Well, think about it like this. If you are talking about a guy that everyone is going, oh, this is the future of the division. Like, this guy, he's the next big thing. Would you pick a guy that struggled that hard against Smiling Sam Alvey? I can't do it. I don't know. It's a gut feeling more than anything else. That for me, Johnny Walker, I'm gonna roll with him. He's $8,300 on DraftKings. This is a guy that gets a lot of finishes for $8,300. Fighting another guy out there he's slower than him, might be easier to hit. I don't know. It's just for me, I can't say no to that price for those kind of results. Ryan Spann, he could be a good play. I'm looking at it right now. He's only $7,900. I mean, he could easily cash out for you as a dog. If you want to save $400, if you feel like Spann could take this fight and you want to save $400 and maybe instead of getting a Laramie or Kevin Holland and you want to spring to get that Chimaev money or the Colby Covington money, you could do that. I mean, you could feel good about it too. But for me, when I'm breaking these down, I just think Johnny Walker, he's going to be in our lineup at 8,300.
Do you think that they for sure thought that the Corey Anderson fight was a finish, given Johnny Walker's past career as a stripper, that when he got knocked and went down, he just did too much of the body movement, and then they thought his body was shut down, but it was really just him putting a little bit of English on it?
If anything, I think it was a little revenge for Corey Anderson because he kind of has those weird nipple things, that nipple fat going on. And I think when he sees another person doing the stripper routine, he feels like some of it.
For anyone who wants to know, that's gynomastia.
I wasn't going to say that. I'm pointing out a fact. I don't feel like I'm wrong for saying that. But I feel like maybe he thought that Walker was taking a little money out of his pocket and he was angry about it. But no, oh, Jesus.
So it's a good thing that we don't always agree on fights in general, because then that's a boring show of everyone just repeating themselves in general. It's good when because then what happens is the next show, if we're blatantly wrong, it could be like, psh, told you. Yeah. and then it's just cash in. Basically, it's a win-win for the show, because if we're wrong, you look great. And if you're wrong, we like so. And obviously, a lot of times, like me and the real Mike kind of have an understanding. For the most part, we have disagreed on bets in general. Usually, if we do completely disagree, like vehemently disagree, we'll kind of back off and maybe not do that one. But we have minor disagreements. But like Johnny Walker versus Spann going into it, I actually hadn't picked that fight. I can see his case, and I actually now have leaned more towards his case. Now, is that biased because he told me and I looked into it and I'm seeing all the same things he is? Very possibly. I would have talked to Mikey Gills before I talked to real Mike. May I be on the other side? I can't tell you. But in terms of this one, with them on the Ryan Spann at plus 105, because obviously it is the bets for the show, so they are going out for the show. But next up, we have a unique fight, in my opinion. Full disclosure, I don't have a bet on it, even though I was kind of thinking maybe Khamzat Chimaev, everyone's new favorite guy for beating scrubs, is minus 360 versus Gerald Meerschaert plus 305. And this is by far the best guy he's ever fought, Chimaev. I understand he looks like an absolute killer, and he may be. He may absolutely be the truth, who's going to come in and just destroy everybody and be slowly marching his way to a championship. But he's not a middleweight. He's going against a middleweight who is the best competition he's fought ever. Has a decent ground game, but like Mike Gills has said, it's kind of weird when you trust a guy who's like kind of go-to is like the ground game, but he gets subbed a lot. It's a very weird juxtaposition. But so I had been thinking of maybe going with Meerschaert, but I don't know, man, dude. Meerschaert's it's just enough damage, and he's willing to take just enough damage that I'm staying away. I do think the double booking of Chimaev is just begging something bad to happen here. But this guy has fought like 3 times over. What was the first weight class he fought at? Was that 185 or was that one 170? I know the middle one was 170 for sure, but I know he's jumped around a lot.
Yeah, I think he came in and took a fight at 185 and then went back.
Yeah, then down. Okay.
And now he's come back up.
Yeah. In general, I do think he's too small for 85, even though, yeah, I don't know. Either way, I would love to see Meerschaert play spoiler here just because I enjoy chaos. But if Chimaev is the new truth, I'm all for that as well, because when there's guys that are just demolishing on the way up, it just makes the sport more fun. So just as a contrarian, I'll pick Meerschaert, but I have no bet on this whatsoever. I've backed away from originally thinking about it. Honestly, the weirdest thing I could think of is, I'll look it up now while I give it to Mikey, because I'll look it up, is possibly Meerschaert versus round 3, because he has a propensity to finish fights in round 3. So I can only assume that's a ridiculous odds, and then you just throw like a quarter unit on it or whatever to win some. So Mikey Gills, Chimaev versus Meerschaert, or GM3, whatever he's going by now.
So every show that I've been on, we've actually had this. It kind of organically happens, and this is this week's disrespect fight. This is the one where a guy is just so blatantly just fed to the wolves here that.
Hey, dude, we're 2-1 in disrespect fights. I'm just putting that out there. And
we're keeping track of that. Okay.
Just off the top of my head. Wait a minute.
Do I hear
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back?
What's up, man?
What's up?
So if you don't know those sounds,
finally, bro,
that is the real Mike hopping in. We thought it might happen. We weren't sure, and he's here.
I wish I could find the picture on this beast. Not much, man. Just grinding fucking 14 days straight in Hollywood for Rihanna's Savage Time Fenty Volume 2. You can find that on Amazon Original coming out soon. Just straight grind mode, man. So stoked to finally jump on with you guys just a little bit. I've been listening to the show as I came home, and you guys doing a great job, man.
Well, that's why, since you're here, man, before we were about to go a little bit more into, I already gave my 2 cents on Chimaev versus Meerschaert, but since we already passed your pick, let's jump back to it, and you can give the full breakdown for Spann versus Walker.
Oh, yeah, because I heard Mikey talking shit again, talking the same thing. He said, remember last week, folks, when he was against both of me and Bob's picks? You guys remember that shit? Hey, we won. Just so you know.
both of you guys were against Ed Herman, and my boy went out there and dominated from start to finish.
Whoa. Domination's a big word. Domination's a big word. Dominating is what I do to my woman at night. I don't know about what happened over there, all right?
There was never a doubt ever, and I'm sticking by my.
No worries. Just like Bob talked about, Mikey's our DraftKings expert. His picks are based off DraftKings prices, their salaries. They're much different than what Bob and I go after, and it is what it is. But with Ryan Spann, I mean, Johnny Walker, man, great dude, awesome performer. He's really, really agile, real fast, kicks real well, strikes great. But he's got a suspect chin. He's lost multiple times of being knocked out in the amateur scene. Not even in his earlier pro career versus scrubs. If he catches hands from Spann, doesn't matter on the temple, chin, anywhere, dude's gonna have flashbacks. He's not to be trusted. If Walker was the guy that we all thought he was, why is he only -115? It's bait. It's no different than the bait that Ryan Bader versus our boy that we, it had such a low line. People hit Ryan Bader because the line was low. They thought it was too good to be true. Bob and I saw through that. So Ryan Spann, I think he's way too tough. He's got 8-fight win streak. He's going to come in there hot as fuck. Johnny Walker is going to come in there hot too. Might be a detriment to himself. I think that he's going to get clipped, knocked down on the ground, and scream like a little girl. 1.05, 1 unit for 1.05, baby.
Real Mike coming in hot.
I've been waiting weeks for you guys.
He's
fucking
all pent up. He's all pent
told,
up.
I told T that I said, Mo, I'm coming in hot, like fucking hot as a comet coming through the solar system. Hot.
Well, in the door, like, eat it.
Yeah. Hey, and disregard the ugly hair. I'm usually much better looking. It's all good.
You're beautiful to us.
Thank you.
I already gave my spiel on Chimaev versus Mearshart. Mikey, you were in the middle of yours. And actually, Mikey, so when you finish your breakdown of Mearshart versus Chimaev, real Mike, just hop right in after Mikey's done, okay? So
sounds good.
Continue with your disrespectful talk.
Well, we've already pretty much covered Chimaev about like everything that COVID All-Star, 3 fights in 3 months, jumping weight classes, blah blah blah. Mike, did you hear that this was this week's disrespect pick? Did you hear that?
GM3.
This is the disrespect pick, but I'm not picking Mearshart, but let's just look at a few things. He has beaten and fought to close decisions against some really good competition. Darren Wynn, Trevin Giles had the close decision loss to Kevin Holland. He's a much bigger, true middleweight, sneaky good ground game. By no means is he a pushover. He's got more experience. He's bigger. He's beaten better fighters than Chimaev has ever faced, and he is motivated for this fight. If you hear the interviews that he's given right now, he knows he's being disrespected. He is eager to play spoiler, and I am thinking that when this fight starts, he is going to be hell on wheels when this thing opens up. Now, I don't know if that translates into a win for him because, let's face it, I mean, if you're talking about people that just look good, and you're going to base beating scrubs like the way that Chimaev's been beating them, then yeah, that's why his price is the way it is. That's why I would still pick him to win this fight. But by no means, Mearshart, by no means do I think Mearshart is just going to roll over and die for this guy. Plus, Mearshart, he's from Racine, Wisconsin. If you've ever seen A League of Their Own, home of the Racine Belle,
yeah, baby,
like the Rockford Peaches. So Underdogs is where this guy was born. Let's go. Still going with Chimaev, but look out for Mearshart. He's $6,800. I bet this guy is going to be owned like a mofo on DraftKings. $6,800. Everybody wants to be part of the miracle. Kazmat Chimaev, $9,400. For me, that's just a little too rich. There's guys like Colby Covington at $9,300, TJ Laramie at $92, and before the fight got booted, there was Bektic at $95. I would have taken all those guys over Chimaev at that price just because of the size difference. But by God, if you feel good about some underdogs that I don't, go ahead and roll Chimaev in there. I do think that he is going to be, I do think he's going to cash out. But just Mearshart, just keep this much in the back of your head.
Yeah, and I actually agree. I think that I said it before about Kazmat. He's amazing, great dude, but he shot in there so fast for his takedowns, and you never seen any stand-up. So I have seen zero stand-up from Kazmat that I trust. I trust his wrestling and I trust his ground game. But Darren Wynn is a world-class wrestler himself, and he had, GM3 did great versus him. So I'm not really worried about GM3's takedown defense, really. I think the biggest question of the night is going to be, can Matt take a punch to his fucking face? And I really don't know. I don't think the price is warranted. I'm with you guys on the fact that it's disrespect. There's no way in hell that I throw money on Matt in this situation. His chin has not been tested. I have not seen him in combat. I've only seen him just dominate, and that's just really not a fight.
Yeah, just quickly, I had brought up about the possibility of a slight bit of great money on GM3 round 3, because that tends to be when he gets his finishes. Even in fights he's losing, those odds are not released yet, so we can't give that out. I apologize, but keep an eye on that, as him straight is plus 305 and him inside the distance is plus 410. So I can only imagine round 3 is probably going to be over plus 1,000. So if you have a tendency to go towards Mearshart, that's if he's gonna get a finish, that's probably when it's going to be. Next up in the co-main event, we're going to go right to that one. Donald Cowboy Cerrone rocking quite a few losses, plus 130 versus Nico Price versus minus 150. For me, this is my bet of the card. I like Nico Price here, and it pains me to say it, because anyone who listens to the show, and I know Real Mike knows, and talked about it earlier with Mikey Gills, that I am a Cowboy Cerrone guy through and through. But man, all these losses are going up. The damage is going up. He's getting finished like he never did. He used to be able to hit the dude with a 2x4 and he'd be fine. A little bit weak to the body, but everything else he was straight. In the past, I've talked about, it feels like all of our favorite vets are losing, and I usually end up on the wrong side of that because I tend to lean towards the vet. And then this is one of those spots where they're trying to make a name. It's a guy that could put on tons of damage, and just Cerrone's going to stand here. He's absolutely going to stand. He's still small for 170. I don't care who says what. And Price is gotten so much better. He was going toe-to-toe for Luque, and honestly, even beating Luque, in my opinion. And I had a bet on Luque there, so I was nervous as all get out until that eye injury TKO got Price out of there. So I do think Price is going to win, and I actually think he can put Cerrone out, but he's only minus 150. So my bet for this one is the minus 150 to win 1 unit on Price. And since this is our first time doing this format, I'm trying to think. I don't know who to go to. I'll tell you what, I'll go to Real Mike first, because then Mikey can finish it out with the DraftKings, and then that way that makes more sense. Or we'll play with that, but we'll do this one first. Maybe the other one will go reverse. I don't know, but this one will go Real Mike next, and then Mikey Gills right when Real Mike's done. Feel free to hop right in.
Yeah, sounds good. I love your bet here. I think that Donald Cerrone, obviously a great fighter, one of the OGs of the sport. Every single one of us loves him. There's nothing not to like about Donald Cowboy Cerrone. But the thing with his body is it's really, really weak. His body's aged so much. He's been through so many wars that the guy is withered as an old piece of wood on the beach. He is not the same guy that he used to be. Nico Price is a mean motherfucker, dude. Like, he is a legit savage. He has another level in him. He's bigger than Cowboy. He's a true size for that division. And I just think that Nico Price is going to damage Cowboy Cerrone's body very badly, back him up against the cage, and he's just going to drop him there.
Yeah, straight to me then. I'm happy about this one because I agree with both of you. So, like, this time, I guess when Kamal Worthy doesn't lose, or when Kamal Worthy gets beaten, I don't have to, like, come back into the group chat looking all sad while you guys are celebrating.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah, guys, good job.
Sorry for my pick.
No, I agree with you guys, though. Cerrone, he's lost 4 straight. Smaller 170 guy, notoriously slow starter. I think Price is just kind of a proven kryptonite for him. A guy who's going to come out there, start fast. If you look at all 7 of his UFC wins, all of them are the finishes inside of 2 rounds. It's real strong. He's going to throw hooks. Even if Cowboy gets him down, gets on top of him. This guy has one of my favorite knockouts of all time, the Randy Brown KO, where he's on his back and just starts hammer fisting him real hard.
Who does that?
Yeah,
it was so epic.
I've never seen that before.
It's one of my favorite knockouts. If I do have one like kind of stupid reason that I don't like him, is that his nickname's the Hybrid, and if you're going to share a nickname with Brendan Schaub, I'm just a little on the brakes, just a little bit, not too much.
Gross, dude. You ruined it for me. Cancel the bet. Cancel the entire bet, dude. Fuck the bet. Only hybrid I want is marijuana, all right?
Well, I mean, I guess if you wanted to feel better about it, he switched to Big Brown in like 2015. But no, for 8,500, Nico Price, I'm with you guys. He's locked into our lineups tonight. I think he's just a physically bigger, stronger fighter. His style is a proven kryptonite for Cowboy. I mean, even in his prime, which Cowboy's far removed from, I just think he still would have beat him back then. And maybe for Cowboy, like earlier in the show, we were talking about like tough bets, like Diego Sanchez and then the Ed Herman, like they're both cheating. I know Cowboy wasn't a tough bet, but like if we could like make an amendment to that, maybe a tap out show vet can go cheat somewhere. I don't know. Maybe he can like just like elbow him a bunch of times in the back of the head. Maybe we can work that out. But Nico Price, 8,500. Let's go.
Yeah, baby.
No, we all agree on that one. So you know what that means. I don't know.
Cash
what that means.
it.
I don't know what that
It
means.
means slam it.
I'm assuming
Slam it.
cash it. Yeah, because Cerrone's going to get hurt here, which is rough saying, but there you go. Next up, we have, and we're going to do reverse this time. So I'm going to go to Real Mike last, and we'll go. Did I do that last? No, we're Mikey Gill's next. Well, this is a work in progress. We'll go Mikey Gill's after I speak, and then this will be a Mikey Gill sandwich. So me, Mike gives Real Mike. So he's the meat right there.
Look,
so Colby
I'll
Covington is minus 345 versus Tyrone Woodley plus 285. This is not the fight when we would have gotten it, which the only reason I am personally upset about that is if this fight was when they were supposed to make it like 18 months ago, 2 years, this was going to be a pick'em. This fight would have been a pick'em. And honestly, not much has changed in the fight. Tyrone Woodley is a little bit more shop worn. And honestly, Colby Covington, other than just his output, his overall striking game has gotten a bit better. Everything else is about the same between them. Covington's seemingly endless cardio, whatever is the result of that is still there. It's ridiculous. Honestly, I was looking into Covington by decision for this. I also been like, man, that's plus money. This is that would be a bet for me. And if you listen to the show for any length of time, I'm not a big on prop, but there's some that I just love, some props I just love, and I do like that one here. But it's minus 145, so obviously it's much better because I do think if he wins, it's likely going to go to decision. But I just think his sheer volume on Tyrone Woodley, who notoriously is low on output and also loves to back himself against a cage, where he's just going to get more and more shots putting on him by Covington, who doesn't slow down, who actually gets faster. Obviously, Tyrone Woodley can throw the haymaker from nowhere and put people out. He can, but he's just, I've heard several people say in the last couple fights, he just hasn't been able to get actually throw. Like he's waiting for that shot. And what used to happen is he actually still used to throw it. He doesn't do that anymore. He just, I don't know, keeps backing up, taking shots, looking for the perfect opportunity that never comes because these new guys, they move laterally enough that like that perfect shot just isn't there. You're not going to catch him coming in as easily as you were before. So, I mean, he's going to be insufferable after it happens, but I think Covington's going to win a clear decision here. It's going to look just as bad as when Woodley fought Usman, other than there's going to be more strikes to his face and he's going to be bloody. So sorry, Tyron Woodley, you've made me a lot of money as an underdog, but this is not going to be one of them. Mikey Gill's DraftKings, just straight picks. Covington, Woodley. I can only assume Covington's a big DraftKings points, like just in general, let alone in this fight.
Yeah, Colby Covington is an absolute all-star on DraftKings. I mean, he's scored 130, 140 points before in fights, and this is a 5-round fight, so he can pile those up too. I'm right with you. I think he's going to dominate in this fight. I think he's going to destroy him. But in the off chance that he doesn't, I have made some notes about Tyron Woodley when it comes to why we would pick him for DraftKings. And if you look at it, of all the people around his price range, there's the Meerschaerts, the Minners, and the Storts. I think all of these guys are going to get worked over. So if I'm just going on who has the best chance to score a couple of points in that, it's Woodley. I think he's still Tyron Woodley. He still has that right hand that can connect at any point in this fight. Like you said, he doesn't throw it anymore, but if he does, Colby Covington got tagged up by Damian Maia. Don't tell me that Tyron Woodley can't land on his jaw in a fight that he's probably the most motivated for at any in his career. If Woodley doesn't win, I mean, he still has 5 rounds to score points where the other guys only have 3. I already talked about he takes punches, but Colby can wrestle too. Woodley can wrestle too. So if we're talking about DraftKings, Tyron Woodley is going off real cheap. I just had it up here. I think it was 7,600. Sorry, give me 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm buying 6,900. So for me, if I'm talking about the cheapest dogs, is in DraftKings, you have to have a dog or 2. Tyron Woodley is not a bad play for the people in his price range. And on our particular card tonight, he is locked in on ours. Despite the fact but I agree with everything you guys just said. He's going to lose, all that. But just for all the reasons I just said, I think Woodley is the best chance to maybe get a lot of points if you're trying to get the most money. So,
yeah, that sounds great for DraftKings for sure. Colby Covington, man, his wrestling is just absolutely tremendous, dude. His pace, his cardio. Tyrone Woodley, I don't know if he's too rich now, if he's just made it, if he's a made man. He just doesn't seem motivated enough to me. He's definitely training. I know he's training real hard. He's got George Masvidal, Colby Covington's ex best friend there, training him specifically for Covington, giving up secrets that Masvidal had trouble with. But I really just don't think it's the time for that. Woodley's gonna do anything. He's so gun shy with his big right hand. It's so despicable that it doesn't. I mean, he might throw the right hand and he could knock him out, right? But his volume will be so low and so despicable, and he'll be taken down multiple times. And he does not like the real wrestling, scrambling, jiu-jitsu type scrambles that Colby Covington and Usman and all these guys love doing. Myself personally, I love rolling and transiting and flowing with someone. And when you get with a guy that's just better than you at it, it's a long fucking round, and not one round. He's got five with Colby Covington, who took some tremendous damage from Usman and wore it like a savage. I think Colby Covington is one of the truths. I know that he can be a loudmouth and a retard, but dude, his fighting performance, he reminds me of a Dennis Rodman playing basketball. The motherfucker plays ball. And so Colby Covington's going to come in here. He's going to smash T. Woodley, 5-round decision, most likely. Like Bob said, I really believe 5-round wrestling clinic is going to go down.
Now, for a quick bet recap before we get our official, as of right now, obviously with everything crazy that goes on, the lineup tends to change. But before we give the DraftKings lineup, I'll give you the recap of the bets, and then we'll give you our tentative official. We'll tweet out any updates. DraftKings lineup, but our bet recap is 1 unit on Ryan Spann at plus 105, and then the minus 150 on Price to win 1 unit. That's 1.5 units to win the 1 unit for this Saturday. Now, Mikey Gills, what is our, as of right now, DraftKings lineup?
Yes, I'll update on Twitter tomorrow morning when it completely changes. But
yeah, poor Mikey.
Mackenzie Dern, $8,700. She simply does not let down on DraftKings. Should be easy money. TJ Laramie, 9,200. Like, let's be real, like we said earlier, it's a showcase fight for this guy. The UFC is tossing him a softball. Nico Price, 8,500. Cowboys Kryptonite in human form. Big, fast starting welterweight. Johnny Walker, 8,300. Please don't yell at me. I just like him in this fight. David Dvorak, 8,200. I like what I see from him. His stand-up's Chris. I think we can cruise to a decision with a lot of strikes, or maybe even land a kill shot. Tyron Woodley, we just talked about him, 6,900. So once again, Mackenzie Dern, 8,700. TJ Laramie, 9,200. Nico Price, 8,500. Johnny Walker, 8,300. David Dvorak, 8,200. And Tyron Woodley, 6,900. Let's
go. Sounds good.
Before we move on from Mikey Gills, do you have anything final to say to the people before we start doing our outro and bid everyone adieu?
Job, just happy to have real Mike back. So I told you we're gonna get the fake Mike sign in the background.
Yeah, no. What sucks is for the backstory of real Mike versus fake Mike. It has nothing to do with Mikey Gills. One time, our last show we used to do, Bob and I would do it with this particular person, and he would end up calling Bob Mike all the time, and it was just so funny that we end up being like, all right, he's gonna be Mike, then I'm real Mike, because you keep calling Bob Mike, so Mike's not Mike no more. He can be real Mike. So it had nothing to do with Big Mikey Gills. We're a pleasure to have him here as your DraftKings extraordinaire, and we brought him here because we had faith in him. And so when we disagree, has nothing to do with personal stuff with Mikey. He's a DraftKings guy. I have no clue what the hell he does, and I study stuff that he doesn't know. So either way, I'm glad to have him on the team, and he kills it.
Thank you.
And appreciate real Mike, do you have anything else to throw in since you are back?
I just missed. He
didn't go anywhere. He was just busy. He's back though. He's right here.
Yeah, Rihanna had me working like a slave for the new Savage Time Fenty Volume 2. Like I said, Amazon original coming out.
It sounds way better than it is.
Yeah, your boy built one of 7 carpenters, prop makers in Hollywood, built the whole thing. It's fucking absolutely incredible. Looks like something out of Disneyland mixed with something in a factory, mixed with some lingerie naked models. That was just absolutely amazing. So definitely when it comes on Amazon, definitely look that up. Savage Times Fenty Volume 2. But thank you guys all for listening. Thank you for listening to me rant. Thank you for letting me leave for a few weeks, and thank you, Mikey, for filling in.
Thank you. Yes, thank you guys again for the opportunity. I love doing this.
Oh, absolutely. And this is this last little bit here, this last like 10, 15 minutes, this is what the show is going to be going forward. Obviously, things come up. Some people get busy, vacation, things. When things go back to normal, some occasionally it'll be down to 2. But in general, this will be the 3.
The three
going
amigo,
forward.
the 3 amigos.
Now, we will be back next week to preview UFC 253 Adesanya vs. Costa, plus, Reyes versus Jenny from the block, our boy, going for that vacant light heavyweight title. And thank you, everyone who has been watching us live right now. We very much appreciate it. Anyone of you who don't watch us live, why don't you want to watch us live? It's a good time. You maybe miss uncomfortable stuff that gets edited out. You'll never know unless you watch live. But don't forget to subscribe to
not to be biased, but you couldn't ask for 3 better looking motherfuckers on the screen right now. I mean, from all parts of the world, but I mean, a little biased.
I'm not as good as the poses, but maybe we'll do, like, if we get enough followers, I mean, who knows? We have enough people on the team now. We could do a calendar, like Tippy could have a month, T could have a month, just like everyone just has their own month, and you could have the MMA for Money show calendar.
Yeah,
you're into that thing, just like send it in. We'll sign. Yeah, we dressed up like our different professions, as we talked about. We're at least the 4 here currently. We're all in the different service industries, so like it could be your own personal. Why am I the YMCA?
Nice. I'm the construction
dude. We could be your MMA village people, but like
I'll make
not
it look
quite
good.
A zigzag, more of a straight line, if you know what I'm saying.
We're like a month away from Halloween. That's perfect.
I got my tool belt ready.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect. Well, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your platform of choice: Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overcast, Podcast, RSS feed. Yeah, we're on Spotify. We're basically Joe Rogan, so you might as well listen. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube if you're watching us live on YouTube. Very easy. Just click subscribe. If not, go there, do that. You could watch the show later. Anything you may have missed or the smaller tidbits to get you through the week, like, comment, and share to spread the word. Please do those comments and those ratings on Apple iTunes. It does a ton. And with that, let's roll.